Good afternoon, ladies and gents. I'm just going to be providing you with a 7-day update on key points related to the war in the Ukraine. It's the 3rd of September 2024, and let's kick this off. I'm not going to go through any history in detail. If you haven't been following the real news on, what's been going on across Europe, then I'm sorry, guys. Well, we can't go over all of that again. I'm new to this YouTubing, as you'll quickly gather, but I don't want to be branded as a YouTuber. I'm a prepper, and the two are very different things. Please, if you want any understanding of what's going on, I urge you really to sort of have a look at what is the only playlist on my channel at the moment called Channel Introduction Videos. And if you have any time, try and watch them in order. Otherwise, some of them are just not going to make any sense. Guys, I'm just going to throw up some slides as I normally do. Apologies that they're not that exciting, but they're relevant, to what we're going to be talking about. If you're going to take any of this shit seriously, then please take what is being sort of said seriously. If you're merely looking for just killing some screen time, then just move on to other channels, guys, because I'm not here to waste your time. As I'm sort of concerned right at the moment on how much time we've got left. When I say that, ladies and gents, I mean how much time have we got left to prepare, not the end of the world and all that madness. Right, I don't want to be biased to the British people just because I'm living here in the UK. The information in this session is for anyone across Europe and other parts of the world. This is where I need you guys really to place yourselves, meaning your sort of headspace, your train of thought and your energy, and try and get it into the zone just for the duration of this session. I live here in the UK and believe with a very high degree now that there are Russian submarines swimming around the UK coastlines as we speak, and the coastlines of other European neighbours. These are military tactics and go without saying. Submarines are equipped with advanced sonar and communication systems in order to carry out vigilance, patrols and reconnaissance sort of missions. All naval submarine fleets around the world sort of carry out such missions as standard. The attack submarine, I think it's the NRP RPO, Portuguese submarine under the command of NATO, returned back to Portugal not long ago after a 70-day deployment, being tasked to monitor non-NATO military platforms. So I said non-NATO military platforms, both surface and submarine. So when I say surface, that's going to be vessels on the surface water and also submarines submerged. These are, they're monitoring or have been monitoring for 70 days. These vessels known to operate on or below the Arctic ice up in the Northern Hemisphere. So basically, they're out there monitoring Russian submarines and surface sort of vessels that could be or are operating in the Arctic. And Russia will be doing the same, constantly monitoring the coastlines of the UK and others, sort of other European coastlines. I'm here to look for signs and signals, guys. I've mentioned it before in previous videos. That's what I look for. I'm looking for signs so I can determine which direction my life is going to end up going in. So therefore, I can kind of plan and prepare for that. I've mentioned in previous videos that the messages are there. You just need to be able to know what you're looking for and also where to find them. I have mentioned that I spent the last 25 years working in IT across networks, infrastructure, cloud, and security as either a freelancer or contractor. And with that, I've had an idea of the market. I have also sort of mentioned previously that I've not been out of work actually for those 25 years up until January 2024. When I finished a contract, and I've not been able to secure another sort of IT contract since then. And why am I talking about this? Because this is one of those signs. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but long story short, for me, IT positions across all industries here in the UK, that is, have plummeted in terms of vacancies that are available. They're just not there in the numbers that they used to be. And I'm trying to get to the bottom of the reasons why. which has been challenging. I've spoken to hundreds of people out there over the months within the industry, across the recruitment agencies, and also people working within managed services arena and also corporate estates. My first bit of advice to you guys, this is for you. I would listen to this. Don't panic or anything like that. Just take note. No matter what job you're in right now, nor the industry that you work in, try, if possible, and find out whether the company that you work for is doing okay or not. Is the industry you work in seeing any kind of downturn? Is your company laying people off at the moment and making others maybe redundant? Does there seem to generally be less work going around at work? Again, depending on what you do at work. And also, if you can, just try and listen to what other people at work are sort of talking about, especially management and those in higher positions within the company. That's if you work within management, otherwise you're not going to be mixing in those circles. But the reason why I say this, guys, is because I thought for 25 years that the IT industry would be safe no matter what. Everything and everybody needs IT. And that is not the case now. With that information, I've quickly created a plan B. That being, I have just finished a training course and obtained licenses to drive and operate forklifts within the logistics arena. A massive difference from what I've sort of been used to doing, and also a massive drop in salary expectations as well. But, and this is a big but, during wartime scenarios, and whilst countries are moving on to that war footing that they're now talking about, logistics will, without a doubt, be a safe industry to work in. And also, excuse me, I have food to put on the table, and a family to feed, and also bills to pay. This shit unfolding across the globe is surely becoming a game of survival, without us even knowing about it. And as long as I can provide towards those two things, then I'm happy. Because listen, ladies and gents, if the shit hits the fan in any way, shape, or form, then millions of you will lose your jobs, and you're going to lose them quickly. That's simple. I look on job portals daily, and have done so since, well, more so really since January of this year. And over the last few months, this is what I've seen. The only industry or industries that are recruiting for IT freelancers or contractors is government, intelligence, and private sort of government corporations here in the UK, that is. For anyone to work in those arenas, there's a requirement here in the UK to have what they call SC or DV security clearance, which I don't have, hence the reason why I can't place myself into those domains. Only just recently, though, I've seen the following positions come up on the UK market, and I've never seen this before. Yes, there's always government contracts out there, but not on this scale, in terms of numbers, that is. And that coupled with a massive drop in normal commercial contracts plummeting, is a sign in itself. So like I say, I look for signs. It's actually not the IT industry in itself, but all of the companies across many of the other industries out there. They're all strategizing, cutting back, and a lot of them are just unsure of the economy right now. They either obviously know something that we don't, or they're on the same page as we are or on the same page as in people that are watching this and preppers and stuff like that. I've I've gone off track again. Sorry, I was talking about submarines. So submarines, the MOD or the Ministry of Defence here in the UK, BAE Systems, big company, work alongside the government, and Rolls-Royce and others. They're advertising in mass at the moment for the following vacancies online, and yeah, I've seen this over the last few weeks. They are advertising for where are we? Have I got any examples? Systems engineers, architectural modelling. Well, system engineer is a system engineer, but this is for the MOD and submarines or submarine design. We've got other systems engineers out there, operability engineers, to work on integrated combat systems capabilities. We've got principal engineers, Not sure what they are, but they are looking for those types of engineers that specialize in weight data analysis and tool sets. That's in relation to multi-billion-pound submarine programs. We've got software configuration management principal engineers. So that's lead systems engineers, site engineers, and they are looking for those that specialize in nuclear and radiological engineering knowledge and associated regularity requirements. There's also senior fluid systems engineers to deliver crucial ship services and crew life support capabilities for the next generations of nuclear submarines. We've got a lot of vacancies out there for cybersecurity engineers, specialists. The government are looking for those, and the central government are looking for DevOps and lead developers, and the MOD are looking for network engineers. Now, guys, those industries are always looking for vacancies, but the numbers that I'm seeing at the moment, they're outweighing normal jobs. So it's unprecedented, to be honest with you. So again, like I say, this is a change. It's a sign. It's a sign that something's changing in the economy. There's a lot of defense. There's a lot of keywords that we're seeing out there on the public domain. So nuclear submarines, combat systems capabilities, and so forth. So, guys, governments are making changes. Moving on. So, where do we start? So, I'm just going to go through some of this news with you. Switzerland have proposed to renew or reconsider their current position of neutrality as the war in the Ukraine continues to escalate. So Switzerland are looking at the Swiss security issues by the Ministry of their Ministry of Defence. Switzerland have remained, what should we call it, an independent country in terms of staying neutral, whether that be with certain EU paths or NATO alliances, and they've done so since 1515. However, it looks like that those, their stance might be changing. So what do I think is going on here? Well, it's obvious. I believe it's going to kick off between Russia and NATO. And with that, Switzerland are concerned about their own security and what their independence actually means during a world war. I didn't want to use the term world war, but fuck it. There's no point whatsoever in trying to soften this all up, guys, because actually it doesn't benefit anybody. A war or a world war, guys, is, the reason why I'm using that is because Russia have invaded a neighbor, that being Ukraine. The neighbor is somewhat located geographically on the European border, and there are no signs that Russia are going to stop there. NATO are a defending force and alliance, so consisting of 33 member states or countries, whatever you want to call them. So instantly, there are 33 NATO members versus Russia. So that's 34 countries at war, which, in my view, is a world war. And let's not forget, if it kicks off in the Middle East or North and South Korea, and not forgetting the Chinese and Taiwan, then that, ladies and gents, is a world war on a scale never seen before. I do believe, though, that if Russia were taken out swiftly, and I don't think it's going to be swiftly, this war, is going to be going on for some time. But if, at any point in the near future, shall we say, it looks like Russia are on the back foot and, could be losing ground, I think actually that would stump or prevent or, slow down any other conflict in any of those other regions, unless those conflicts in those regions like the Middle East kick off before NATO announce, or it's evident that NATO are fully fledged within this war in the Ukraine. Let me also tell you what I believe is going on, or what's going to happen actually with the Swiss. I think they're going to join NATO. It's as simple as that. However, they have prided themselves on independence and neutrality, and they won't want to be giving that up. So, with that in mind, the Swiss will only be interested in NATO and not necessarily joining the EU or anything like that. Joining NATO provides them possibly with the security they're looking for as a nation. Personally, for me, it doesn't matter whether or not the Swiss join NATO. Geographically, they're sandwiched between Italy, France, Germany, and Austria. They're a very small country, and I cannot see any strategic advantage for NATO having Switzerland in the mix, but the more members, the merrier. Moving on. I want to get this one out there and out of the way promptly. And the reason for that is because this news is really only surfacing now. However, there were reports of this back in May of this year, so that's 2024. Ukraine have sort of stated that Russia have used over 4,000 chemical weapons during the Ukraine war over the last 1 to 2 years. It also seems that the US and other sources are also accusing Russia of using chemical type weapons on the battlefield. But guys, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. When we talk about chemical, what are we talking about? It seems that a choking agent has been used and dropped from drones on the front lines by the Russians, who also state that Ukraine have done the same. But if you dig a little deeper and look at this accusation, in the most part, it seems to be referring to a chemical similar to what is used during riot control. So similar to tear gas and those kinds of compounds. I've done gas chamber exercises twice, or gas chamber sort of training, and it's uncomfortable as fuck. You've got tears streaming from your eyes, not being able to, get your breath. You've got burning sensation from your mouth to your lungs, down your windpipe. And for anyone who's been silly enough to get caught up in any kind of riot, may have also experienced this, tear gas, CS gas, um, that kind of chemical, shall we say? Yes, it's uncomfortable because it's supposed to be. But this is not a chemical, or it's not the chemical weapons we're sort of more familiar with, such as mustard gas, taboon, VX, or also sarin, which was used against actually the Kurds back in the 90s, whereby 5,000 deaths were reported and 10,000 others were either blinded, maimed, or disfigured. Let's talk quickly about the progressive ramping up of the Air Force. I want to talk about this because there's been a lot of reports out there in and around the F-16 fighter jets on their way to the Ukraine and stuff like that. But I just want to talk about this subject because it has been going on for quite some time. And the main reason for the timescales on this subject is merely because it's taken this long to firstly make sure that at least some of the Ukrainian pilots have been properly trained on these aircraft, but also to ensure that the support infrastructure for such aircraft is in place. There's absolutely no point in having F-16s flying missions and operational sort of sorties if they can't be supported. Zelensky actually, probably a week or so ago, or a couple of days ago, announced that they cannot protect F-16s at air bases at the moment. So that's across Ukraine. That will be due to the lack of surface-to-air defense systems, as they barely have enough to protect other military sort of assets on the ground. One of the most important details to get across to you guys here about these F-16 jets is that they can carry nuclear-tipped missiles. So that's the threat. Small yield tactical nukes, which poses a different level of threat to the Russians on the battlefield. You'll hear about these jets for the next month or so as the media platforms and internet slowly introduce the F-16s or the F-16 posture of the conflict, and then you won't hear much about them until, obviously, a tactical nuke has been dropped. Just like the tanks, ATACMS and Patriots entering the battlefield, plenty to talk about as they were sort of phased into the mix, and now we're not really talking about them. You will hear at the moment how F-16s are landing and taking off on highways or motorways across the theatre, depending on which country you're in, instead of using military bases, which at some point have been and will be sort of targeted by the Russians as what they'll call legitimate counterforce targets or military targets in layman terms. As long as the F-16s can still sort of take off and land, then airborne operations can continue. You can see where this is all going though, guys. Air bases are primary targets in conflict. And as I pointed out in my video, I think it was air bases and sort of other military installations are counterforce targets. And, they will be in the enemy's crosshairs without a doubt. I mean, Ukraine are, sort of, they're targeting air bases and have been for weeks and months now across Russia. So the only difference is they've been using drones instead of F-16s or missiles or anything like that. I've identified up to 40 counterforce and countervalue targets here in the UK, and there are definitely US Air Force and RAF air bases amongst the list. Ukraine have adapted sections of its highway to function as sort of makeshift airstrips for the F-16 fighter jets, as have many other countries around Europe now. These sections of highways or motorways, whatever you want to call them, they've been engineered whereby, the central reservation barriers can quickly be removed, providing a wide, sort of a width or the width necessary, I suppose, for such jets to sort of land and take off. Another piece of news that was announced a few days ago. Countries around the world have, for many years now, they've had in place what's known as a hotline agreement, which allows sort of different countries to stay in communication with each other during times of a crisis, such as war. The US and the Soviet Union kicked off an agreement, I think, back in 1963. Since then, these lines have been upgraded to align, with the newer technologies, and other countries have followed suit. Russia and China have a link. China and the US have a link. India, Pakistan, North and South Korea and China, they all have hotlines. India and China also do, and many, many other countries. Ukraine and Russia also have a hotline between the two countries. But Ukraine have announced this week that they're going to be cutting that link with Russia. So that's going to be their only means of communication, really. It's the main, it's the hotline. So during a crisis, this is quite a serious statement for the Ukrainians to make, because no matter how bad things get, between two or more sides, at least there's always that link to allow some kind of negotiations and compromises to be discussed. Now, between those two countries, that is now not going to be possible. So it just seems that this is all going in the wrong direction, guys. And I'll go back to my comment on looking out for those signs and signals. It's just little news clips or snippets like this that are just, little gradual steps forward to the inevitable. The UK government have published a travel advisory advising UK citizens against all travel to Russia due to the risks and threats from its continuing invasion of Ukraine. And they go on to say that British nationals should consider leaving Russia. If you're in Russia, that is going to be a problem for them, because there are no airlines that fly directly from Russia into the UK or through any European countries. If that's not telling you something, then I don't know what is. Your best bet, if you're in Russia or you know anyone who's in Russia that's looking at getting out based on this advisory, it's probably going to be best for them to get in a car or some sort of mode of transport like that, and just drive across the border into somewhere like Finland, Norway, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. The US and other countries across Europe have also made the same announcements regarding travel advisories to Russia. So, guys, it's another step forward. Okay, all of these communication lines are being broken down, getting your people out of the country and stuff like that. It's hitting us square in the face. Ukrainian officials have started to plan for an all-out attack on Russia, on places such as Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other facilities across Russia. Sorry, guys. To me, when I listen to these news feeds, this is fucking crazy to even talk about it. But on the other hand, if this is the case and is plausible, because Russia have already been invaded in the southern part of Russia over the last month, this doesn't bear thinking about. Guys, I can't find much information out there actually on this, and I wasn't expecting to be honest with you, because quite frankly, in my eyes, this is top secret classified information. For it to have even been mentioned on the public domain or the internet is beyond me. These are high level operations, and you and I, we're going to be the very last people to hear about this. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. That you'll hear that there's talk about Ukraine, planning this big operation and stuff like that. It's not to say that it's not going to happen, but if it is, then we shouldn't really be hearing about it. That's classified information. But anyway, I'm putting it out there. My verdict on this latest invasion in the Kursk Oblast or region of southern Russia requires you to sort of take a few steps back. Well, that's my advice. And what I'm trying to say here, guys, is just try and look at the bigger picture, and hopefully, if anyone has been sort of following this conflict and war, you will know the longer term objective. Actually, fuck that. Let me just tell you how this is and how this is all going. This war has been on the cards since at least 2014, after the first invasion by Putin of Crimea. The sole purpose this time round now is for the West, that being NATO, to stop Putin in his tracks. NATO are not going to be sitting down anytime soon and having any kind of peace talks. I don't think NATO want this shit. They've got to stop Putin and Russia, because they pose a massive threat to Europe and the West, really, and they have to be stopped. Unfortunately, that means a world war. If let's just look at this logically. I mean, Putin doesn't look like he's going to stop. He's going to keep going and going and going. He's making all sorts of threats. He's reposturing his nuclear doctrines. Everything's changing. Okay, he's got no intention of stopping any of this. So we have to act. We, as in the West, don't get scared, guys, and think that I'm talking a load of bollocks. We've already had two world wars, so this is nothing new. The normality bias crew and the ostriches, they'll be saying whatever they'll be saying now, because they've never experienced or seen sort of conflict on a global scale, and therefore they don't believe it's even going to happen in their lifetime. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, ladies and gents, but welcome to the real world. You can register here. Make sure you leave your bubbles on your heads and place them into the lockers provided. And let's talk about the real world, shall we? And you better start taking some of this shit seriously, guys. The reason why Ukraine have crossed, the border into Russia in Kursk is because, and this is only my view, because Belarus have to be drawn into the mix. And why? For two separate reasons. Firstly, Putin will not want to be pulling his troops off of the Ukrainian front lines, and those are the front lines in the east, the Donbass areas and places like that. He's not going to want to be taking troops from those front lines and deploying them in Kursk. Instead, Putin can call on his good buddy Lukashenko to help him fill some of those holes in on the border. What I can't find reported yet is the significant number. Belarus have been accused of concentrating a significant number of personnel, including special operations forces, weapons and military equipment under the guise of exercises. And I'm just wondering what that significant number is. They normally talk about these numbers, but they're not at the moment. In my view, and after some research, Belarus have a shit, or should I say, outdated military, and that is, that's it really. Their military. I've kind of looked at their military, and compared it to, let's say, Poland, and it's not that good. It's outdated, shall we say? If if you look at the screens here, all I've done is I've just taken some of these stats. I've compared the Belarusian manpower statistics with the Polish. There'll be a reason why I'm using Poland. in a minute, and I'll tell you why. These are the land forces in terms of numbers between those two countries. I won't keep them up there for long. You can go back and sort of rewatch this or take a screenshot. And then there's your air power in terms of fighters and aircraft and everything else. What I'm trying to say here, ladies and gents, is that this war kind of has to happen, and the roadmap is already being laid out, and there is a game plan. Belarus are already massing troops along its border, and then the European military posture is changing once again to incorporate Europe. And I'll say it again, when that happens, then I'm sorry, guys, but you better have your shit in order, because if you haven't, well, I don't know what. And then secondly, so NATO will need to get rid of any threats posed by Belarus and Kaliningrad first. Retain the Suwalki Gap, the small stretch of land that links sort of Kaliningrad with Belarus, but it splits Poland's border with sort of Lithuania. So it's a DMZ between those two countries. So strategically, NATO have to sort of plan that battle carefully. If it was me, I would have Poland dedicated to Belarus as a primary force, and unfortunately for Belarus, they'll be flattened. The Lithuanian responsibility for taking Kaliningrad, that would be my move. But if we get to that stage, then we'll have NATO troops on the ground fully in Ukraine, I think, and then it's all go from there. Sorry, guys, I've gone off track again a little bit, but it's easily done as I'm sort of presenting these facts to the viewers, knowing full well that there will be people out there, even watching these videos and similar sort of videos on other channels, thinking that either I'm talking a load of bollocks or none of this is going to happen. And if in fact it does happen, then they're under the illusion that they won't be affected by any of it. All I'm going to say, guys, is yeah, good luck with that. Just a couple more to go through. We also have the Netherlands giving the Ukraine or the Ukrainians the green light to use its weapons, as in the weapons given to the Ukraine from the Netherlands to take out key locations in Russia, targets such as Moscow, St. Petersburg. And with this news, we can start to see the possible sort of intentions of that all-out attack on Moscow and St. Petersburg that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. Well, when you couple this announcement by the Netherlands, you can kind of see what's happening here. But they're giving them the green light for taking out the two key cities, as in the capital and St. Petersburg, which I think is their secondary city, and other sort of strategic facilities across the country. But let's not go down that rabbit hole just yet. Guys, when you read and hear these comments being made by government officials, you can see where this is all going. NATO want this to happen because it has to. Remember, guys, I have a video coming out. It was actually going to be published before this one, but this information is more important at the moment. It's a 7-day update, and I need to sort of get it out to you. Moving on to a final piece. We have Ukrainian drones. A couple of nights ago, flying across Russia into Moscow, targeting numerous oil refineries and other locations. Honestly, this is unheard of during our times, and that, my friends, is what's going to catch most of the people out. Everyone under, sort of two elusive assumptions: either this isn't happening, and if it is, then it's not going to affect them. Let's not go back down that rabbit hole. Actually, let's. There are going to be people out there aware of the conflict, but not in any detail. And those that are familiar with some of the details, some of those some of those people won't actually understand the significance of what's actually happening. So they'll be aware of what's going on, but they won't understand the significance of what's happening. Guys, I've covered a bit here. Just some events that have happened over the last week alone. I want to get into the habit of providing more frequent and up-to-date news. I want to keep these videos short. I want to be able to present them in a better manner instead of just these slides, should we say. I'm just being very careful at the moment with the information or the misinformation, the bullshit that's being broadcasted out there on the public domain. I don't want to be sort of mixed up and sort of confused or confusing you guys with it all. I want to, listen to it, and I want to understand why this information is going out there and how true it is. And I can only do that by sort of, looking at five, six, seven, eight sources and verifying the truth from that lot. That will do for the news update. One last piece of advice I want to sort of get out there, though, before we finish, and that is the importance of getting yourself fit and keeping yourself healthy. If you're not in the right mindset, you're going to struggle with everything else. Healthy body, healthy mind, as they say. With that, I've created a 35-week training plan. I know I hear you, some of you saying 35 weeks, but for me, I'm starting at the very beginning, and my plan is based on the UK's Royal Marines training programme. I started this yesterday morning. Where are we? No, yeah, yesterday morning, Monday, the 2nd of September. So that was day one for me. And what I'll do is I'll provide you with a schedule. I'll be going through weekly. So what I'll do is I'll sort of post a weekly schedule just for anybody that's interested, or is kind of thinking I've got to sort myself out and I want something to follow. It's structure, it's routine, and it covers all the core principles. But for anyone wanting to get themselves in shape, just in case this shit does kick off, guys, you're gonna have to have some level of fitness if things pop off. And honestly, you shouldn't need an SHTF scenario, getting your asses out of the front door and getting some fizz in. And for anyone wondering why, you need to have a level of basic fitness, let me just give you some examples. And as I sort of go through them, ask yourselves whether or not these tasks would be easy or not for you. I'm just going to go through these and then we're finished. Okay. So it kicks off in the Middle East, and there's a fuel embargo issued against the West from the Middle Eastern, from the Middle Eastern sort of countries as a result of the West's support for Israel. So petrol is then rationed. And listen, guys, this is not just the UK, it can be anywhere. Because when it happened again, well, when it did happen in 1973, it affected the US and European countries. But petrol is then rationed, and you're all sort of queued up outside petrol stations for miles, pushing your vehicles down the queue to save petrol. When was the last time you guys pushed your vehicle over any length of distance, whether 10, 20, or 100 meters? I can tell you, like I've just mentioned there, that only in 1973 the UK government rationed petrol here in the UK for the exact reasons, and that was a fuel embargo. Okay, so guys, if it kicks off in the Middle East next week, you could find yourselves queuing up outside petrol stations for a mile or so. So I'm just asking you, how do you feel about getting out your car and pushing it? Because you're not going to be driving it down this queue because you'll be using petrol. Um, Sticking with the petrol crisis, you can't afford the petrol due to the hiked prices. You're not sitting in those queues for hours, but you need supplies. So in terms of food, etc., from the supermarket or wherever. Where is your nearest supermarket, and is it in walking distance? If walking there is an issue for you, then you're definitely going to struggle, especially when you're having to walk back with bags. When was the last time you walked to your shop laden, or back from a supermarket or something like that, laden with bags full of shopping? Okay, physically, these things are can be challenging and demanding, again, depending on your level of fitness. The water utility in your area has been hit with either a cyber attack or an EMP. Another walk off to the local water resource, wherever that might be for you guys. I've done a video on water preparation, so if you've seen it, then you should know that where your nearest sort of water source is in such event. I cover that in that video, looking for water sources near you, collecting water, purifying it, transporting it, and stuff like that. Another walk off to that water source, and a walk back laden with containers full of water. I know that 99% of viewers here would never have done this. Believe me, it is going to test your mental, it's going to test you sort of mentally and physically carrying containers full of water for distances. So if you're unfit, you're going to be challenged. How about you kicking off your home shielding plan of, you know, depending on to what level, but you're going to be shielding your house. You might be filling up and or moving sandbags into place and moving furniture around the house. These will be sandbags for your doors and window recesses, and possibly moving furniture from upstairs or upper levels in the home down to the ground floor. This might not sound much, guys, but you'll be, kicking off your shielding plan under a very tight time constraint, meaning it's all hands on deck. And if unfit, then you might as well not even bother, because you're only going to be getting in the way. You may be given a warning that there could be a strike in your area over the coming days, and some people at that point might decide to start digging a shelter in their garden. I don't need to tell you this, guys, but digging holes with a shovel in your garden or wherever it is going to be hard work for even, fit people. So, you know, all I'm trying to say, guys, is that you might be sat there with your phone in your hands, watching whatever bullshit on the phones and whatever on TV, and they're doing whatever you're doing. But if you struggle with the normal tasks, if you struggle walking to and from a shop or going up and down the stairs, or I mean, just test yourself, guys. Just test yourself. This is a test, right? For you. Go out tomorrow morning and just go for a mile run. Just go for a run, and just see how you feel. Okay, just a mile. For some of you that are fit and you do go to the gym, that's not going to be a problem. So for you, don't bother doing that. But what I'm trying to say is a lot of people don't go to the gym. People don't keep fit. And that's it. All I'm trying to say here, guys, is that your level of fitness will come into its own if and when the shit hits the fan. Believe me, you're gonna fucking know about it, okay? Enough of the bollocks from me. This is million update and views on a couple of the events that have happened over the last 7 days and news articles, that have kind of been mentioned. I have verified these. I've tried to kind of pinpoint exactly what's being said. And that's it. Just get yourselves military fit and infantry aware, or just get yourselves, fit and on point and switched on, guys. And that's it. Take care.